seven-figure climb. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little background on how Dan Kennedy started selling high ticket in the, he first started out selling it in the chiropractic market, and then later on he sold it in the dental market, but he didn't call it high ticket. He called it practice management because he was selling to essentially doctors, like I said, chiropractors and dentists. And we're going to tell you that, but before we do that, I do want to clean up a little bit, from the last video, because I can tell you that not everyone who's selling high ticket is selling a scaling offer. And so not everyone doing high ticket is helping people with Facebook ads, marketing, or strategy or anything like that. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people who take that first channel and just charge more money for it. And you can certainly do that. And Dan Kennedy's mindset, as far back as the 1970s was, if he didn't know how to price something, he would just add a zero to it. So instead of being $297, it would be $2,997. And that's how he would do it. And the reason for that is Dan talks a lot about price elasticity in the marketplace. And there's just a lot of price elasticity everywhere. I mean, any market you go into, there is someone in that market selling very, very high ticket, and they're just charging a lot of money for the same thing someone else is not charging anywhere near as much money for. And you can look at any market out there and find people where the variance of price is very, very, very high. There's just a lot of variance there. And so you don't have to be selling a scaling offer. You can certainly be doing a how-to or how to build a business, or how to buy real estate with no money down. Anything that you want to do, you can certainly charge high ticket for it. And so I want to tell you the Dan Kennedy story because I think it's valuable. And you could say Dan Kennedy was selling high ticket when high ticket wasn't cool, or before it was even a thing or called high ticket. But I'll kind of tell you how he got into the marketplace, and then I'm going to tell you how he helped, how he was selling a $29,995 offer, and then he raised the price to $34,995. But we're going to go through this. And please bear with me because I'm telling you, the chest hurts. I'm losing my voice. I'm not doing well here, but I do want to get some content out today, and so we're just gonna fight through it. So how this started, and this is the thing. I don't think any of this happened by design. I don't think any of this was a plan. Now, what's interesting is that if you're following me and you get what I'm saying, if you're drinking the Kool-Aid and you're picking up what I'm putting down, you probably have an idea that you're going to create a $997 offer and a $5,000 offer and a $15,000 offer, and you're going to basically create this product curriculum and sell people upstream or up or some version of that. But I don't think Dan Kennedy. I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't hear that he had strategized all of this out, and I've heard the story told many times by him, and so I think a lot of it is just fortunate circumstance. And so Dan Kennedy was doing the Peter Lowe events, and he was doing $1 million a year selling magnetic marketing. And he was doing that through speaking at the Peter Lowe events. And by speaking there, they were selling $1 million worth of magnetic marketing. He was keeping half of the money. Peter was keeping half. And Foster Hibbard came to Dan, and Foster was a speaker in search of a speaking gig. So he's a professional speaker, and he was looking for a way to earn a living. He was struggling. And so Dan, he took magnetic marketing and he created a product called Magnetic Marketing for Chiropractors. And what he did is he took the same package and he basically recreated it for helping chiropractors build their business up and things like that. And it was called Magnetic Marketing for Chiropractors. And then what he did is he put Foster Hibbard on the road. And what they were doing is, I think he was renting mailing lists. Sending out postcards, and they were putting people in like Holiday Inns, and Foster would come out on stage and do 90 minutes of content, and then he would offer magnetic marketing for chiropractors. And the price of that was $497, either $297 or $497. I think it was $497. And and this worked very well. And my understanding is Dan was renting mailing lists, and I think the mailing lists were chiropractors that had just attended an event where someone was selling a $50,000 or $25,000 or $50,000 offer. And so the mailing list was to chiropractors who'd been pitched something very, very, very expensive. And so when they got to the room and they started listening to Foster Hibbard speak, they were prepared for a $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 offer. And then what would happen is he would deliver content for 90 minutes and then make a $497 offer. And Dan Kennedy said that literally every person in the room would buy. I mean, and they would run to the back of the room because they were shell shocked that they weren't being pitched a very, very high end program. And they wanted to run to the back of the room and buy because they were concerned they're going to be upsold, right? And he said literally that Foster would sell, he would have 200 people in the room and sell all of them but two, and he would literally be crying because two didn't buy. And he would actually call them and ask them why they didn't move forward. He took it personally because he really felt the program would help them. And Dan basically said that Foster was on the road going city to city to city, and Dan was also on the road with the Peter Lowe events doing the same thing. And when he was off from the Peter Lowe events, he would sometimes show up at some of those events. He would pitch himself sometimes. Sometimes he would speak and speak and do the whole presentation himself and then make the offer himself. But it was basically a way to give Foster the job, give him an opportunity to make revenue and all that. And so what ultimately happened is Dan sold them magnetic marketing for chiropractors. And then what he did is he essentially took the list, the mailing list that he built or the email list that he built from doing all of that. And he sent them essentially a offer for a high tip for a practice management package. And I don't know what the offer said, but it said probably something to the extent if you're doing at least X amount of dollars, let's say you're doing at least $20,000 a month, and you want to start doing $100,000 to $200,000 a month in your chiropractic business, schedule an appointment to have a conversation to have a conversation. And Dan would actually go out and meet with these people in person. And so the thing was so lucrative, he would probably schedule 2 a day, 10 a week in the same area, but he'd fly to an area and he'd do 2 a day for 5 days. So he'd meet 10 people in that area and then go to another area and do the same thing. And so, but what the offer was essentially was advanced practice management. And how the advanced practice management worked was that most of these chiropractors weren't making a lot of money because what they were doing is they were selling individual adjustments. They were selling, emergency room pain help. And so someone would come in and they would sell, they would do an adjustment and charge $100 or $150 or $200 or whatever that was. And that was the money that they were getting in. And what Dan said is, Dan basically said, quit selling individual adjustments and start selling practice management. And what practice management looked like was someone would come into the office and they would do is they would have a consultation with the person, and then they would do x-rays of the person, And then they would set the person in a room, and the chiropractor or someone, usually the chiropractor, would come in and say, okay, based on where you're at, this is what your problem is. And what you need is you need 10 adjustments a month for the next 3 months. And then you need 5 adjustments a month for the 3 months after that. Then you need 2 adjustments a month, then 1 adjustment a month after that. And the total cost of that's going to be $7,500. And how do you want to pay? Do you want to pay with a credit card, or do you want to go through household finance? We've got an application for you to apply for credit to actually pay for it that way. And so what Dan was teaching them how to do, he was teaching them how to sell high ticket. Instead of selling adjustments, Dan said, don't sell adjustments, sell practice management, and deliver and basically get people to take responsibility for their back health and get the help that they need, rather than just coming in because they're mistreating their body or whatever. And what Dan would do, how he sold this through a percentage above base. And so what he said was, there were essentially two ways to pay. And the first way was percentage above base. So he said, if you're making 100,000 a year, we're going to give you your 100,000 a year. If the first, and he was getting, I think, 20% percentage above base, which means 20% of the money they made from doing this program. So he would teach them the program for maybe free or very, very small upfront cost. And then for the next 5 or 7 years, he was getting a percentage above base. And so if they started 100,000 and the first year they made 180, let's say 200,000, because the math's easy, he would get 20% of the second the percentage increase. So they were at 100,000. They made 200,000 the first year. So on that second $100,000 they made, he got 20,000 of that. And then the second year, let's say they made 300,000. So the second year they made 200,000 more, and he would get 20% of that, which would have been 40,000. On the third year, let's say they were up to 600,000, he would get 20% of 500,000, because they started out 100, and that would be 100,000. And what he would do is he would show these people, he'd say, look, if you do the percentage above base, you're going to end up giving me 250 or 300 or 400,000. He would show them what the numbers look like. He said, you can do that, and we will do a percentage above base, or I'll do this for a one-time payment of $29,997. And about everyone, when they saw how much money they would end up giving him, they would immediately figure out a way to give them the money. And so, and he said what that would generally look like is they had 2,000 on this card, and they had 3,000 on this card, and 1,000 on this card, and 500 on this card. And he'd get as much money as he could that way. And then he would walk them down to the bank, and they would go into a bank and they would borrow the balance of what they needed. And that's how he was selling it. And so, I think there's some um, rules in place now, where, because I tell this story a lot, and a lot of people say you can't do that anymore because there's laws against it or something. But that's essentially how he sold it, and he sold that very, very successfully. He blew out the chiropractic market, and then he started selling to the dental market after that, selling the exact same thing. And I can tell you that Jay Abraham, which is interesting, was also teaching this advanced practice management, similar thing, and he was doing seminars and things like that. So they're both teaching a very similar thing here. And Jay I think he did 1 or 2 different seminars for the dental market, and did really well in that. But I just wanted to give you all an idea of what high ticket practice management looks like. And what Dan was teaching, he was teaching very simply practice management presentation. Here's your x-rays. This is what you have. This, based on what we're seeing here, this is what you actually need to cure this or fix this problem. And it's going to be this amount of adjustments or this amount of appointments over a period of time. And then there would be a fee for that. And he said he would literally take chiropractors that were making 20,000 a month, and they would immediately be doing 2 or 300,000 a month just by changing. He said the hardest part was saying the fee with a straight face, and he said that he would literally have to have them practice in front of the mirror, say, asking for, they're used to asking for $300, and now they're asking for $9,700 in some cases. And he said they would have to practice that. And I think he mentioned, I think at some point he did this in a seminar format with a small group of people. And then the day they had to do the practice management presentations, no one would show up, and he'd have to send people to their hotel rooms to find them because they were scared to do it. But that's what ultimately happened. But I thought I'd give you some insights on that. But we're going to end out. Appreciate you all watching me about my video, and I'll see you all on the next on the other side. And thanks a lot.